What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, back with a special episode, man. Listen, we weren't even supposed to record today. I was at work. I got some stuff sent to me by some people in a SWAC group and everything, saying that there was a lot of talk about a Reddit FCS post. Listen, Reddit FCS is one of the most legit FCS sites and information sources for FCS football. Man, go check them out. Also, Sam Herder on Twitter, man, part of Hero Sports. Great content there for FCS football. Listen, I ain't the only source. I ain't even going to front. Those guys know what they're talking about. That's where I got a lot of information from. And those guys are doing it big over there for FCS football. So, these rankings were released in terms of preseason conference power ranking results. And they were shared across a bunch of the FCS groups I was in, and they were also shared at the SWAC groups that we are in. We cover a lot of SWAC football. Even we cover more SWAC football than we do the other FCS. So this is more. So I was asked to do this episode, and I was trying to think how to present it. So let me lay out kind of what we're going to do here today. And in this special episode, one. We're going to go through the rankings, kind of talk about why people are ranked where, and then also then I want to wrap up the episode because I saw some stuff in some of these groups and on the comments that were just out of pocket. One comparing the SWAC to an FBS conference and one saying that, they should be lower and this and that. So listen, we're going to break it all down here. And I just want to break it down, give y'all the facts, and let y'all run with it. So please, any questions y'all have after this episode, any comments, any critiques, anything, man, put them in the comments. I'll be responding to them, and we'll get it rolling. And I was asked to do a live show. That's our guy Off Scripts thing, man. I think he's coming out with a live show either later this weekend or next week about this. So we'll drop our episode with all the facts. Y'all can go to him to get y'all's voices out there. I'm going to stay in my lane, man. The live streams are Scotty's thing. So that's what we're going to be. So the question that we're going to start out with is just like, where does the SWAC rank compared to other FCS conferences, and why would they rank there? So before I give, Reddit FCS S's post, when I did my rankings, I was thinking, I was like, man, I want to do my rankings first. I had the SWAC ninth out of out of the FCS conferences. So let me put up Reddit's. He had the SWAC a little bit higher. He had him one spot higher at 8. I had him at ninth, and I'll explain why here in just a minute. I don't mind 8th. I think 8th and ninth was kind of where most voters had him. So of course it's kicked off with the Missouri Valley Conference at 1, the Big Sky at 2, the Colonial at 3, AQ7 at 4. So one, I want to explain what the AQ7 is for those who don't know. The AQ7 is a combination of the WAC and the ASUN, who just formed this year. They decided to combine the conference for 1 year just so they got that automatic qualifying bid into the playoffs, because in case you guys don't know, in the FCS playoffs, you have to have a certain number of teams in your conference to make it. Since the ASUN and the WAC didn't have enough individually, they merged for 1 year because some schools are joining the ASUN, joining the WAC in the future, couldn't do it this year, so they just combined for 1 year. So that's what the AQ7 is. The SoCon at 5, Ohio Valley at 6, Big South 7, SWAC 8, Southland 9, Ivy League 10, NEC 11, Pioneer Football League 12, FCS Independence, which is not really a conference, but we grouped them together, that 13, the MEAC at 14, and the Patriot Conference in 15th place. That's what FCS Reddit ranked them as. I agreed with most of his rankings. I think I had pretty much all the same at the top. The top's very easy. So let me I want to break down some of these conferences because I know y'all told me, told Scotty, told some of other YouTubers stuff. SWAC at worst low. Listen, we got to get y'all's FCS knowledge up if we're really gonna have this conversation. So I just want to bring some facts to y'all. The Missouri Valley MVFC, by far and away number one. I mean, listen, this conference alone has 8 national titles since 2010, of course, all being North Dakota State, who has won 8 titles with 3 different coaches. Three other teams in this conference have all been runner-up since 2010. South Dakota State was the runner-up last year. Youngstown State was the runner-up in 2016, and Illinois State was the runner-up in 2014. When you look at how this conference produces talent as well, 13 total players drafted since 2018, and don't just say they're on North Dakota State, because those 13 players have come from 6 different programs within the conference. And when you look at the stats perform FCS top 25, the MVFC was the most highly represented team. So let me list these stats, man. This conference had 4 teams in the top 10. North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Southern Illinois, and North Dakota all found themselves in the top 10. And Northern Iowa and Missouri State found themselves later in the rankings. So 6 teams from the MVFC were ranked top 25. 4 were in the top 10. So they're almost half of the top 10 teams come from the MVFC, the Missouri Valley Conference. This conference has also won the most national championships in FCS history, with over 10 in the history of the FCS playoffs. They also have the second most appearances with 15. The MVFC did not make its first appearance till 97. And this is the craziest stat of all. They've had a representative in the title game every single year since 2011. That just shows you the complete dominance of the MVFC. And listen, the standards of this conference are so high, guys, and I want to try to make this point. North Dakota State lost 3 games in a COVID year, new quarterback, lots of young players at important positions. They lost 3 games and made it to the FCS quarterfinals, and people were criticizing them, calling it a terrible season. That's the type of competition level that you see in the MVFC here in the FCS. South Dakota State last year was the runner-up. They were within 16 seconds of winning that title, and now they bring in former Sanford quarterback Chris Oladuncan, who has a lot of experience from Sanford, to be their next QB. So they're going to be right back in the thick of things over there at South Dakota State. North Dakota State, Quincy Patterson is probably the quarterback transferred from Virginia Tech. And NDSU returns a lot of great players, so they're going to be really tough to beat this year, probably be coming for their trying to reclaim the throne, per se, that they've dominated for so many years. And North Dakota's an interesting team, too. They're going to be a team to watch. Otis Way is at running back. The O-line is stacked, and that O-line, guys, only allowed 2 sacks all last season. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys a breakdown of how dominant the MVFC is and why. Because I think they also released their average voting on like what all these voters put. MVFC average 1. Like there was no even like second thought of the MVFC not being number 1. So that's how dominant they are. And then I want to move down to these next few conferences, the Big Sky, CAA, and AQ7. I already broke down what the AQ7 was. That has teams like Sam Houston State, defending national champion, and Jacksonville State in that conference. Kennesaw State's joining as well, I believe. So that's what you're getting. You're getting some old Southland teams, and then also some OVC teams joining the ASUN. The Big Sky, though, at number 2, had 5 teams ranked in the top 25, and 4 of those were in the top 12, guys. So the Big Sky and MVFC 8 of the top 12 were from those 2 conferences. So, and then when you look at the preseason All-Americans, the Big Sky had 23 All-Americans on the preseason FCS team this year, most in the nation. And last year, this conference had their top 3 teams opt out due to COVID. So that's kind of why the Big Sky wasn't as well represented in the postseason as they usually were. Weber State has been really the dominant force. They've won 4 straight conference titles, and they're the 6th ranked team in the country coming into the season. But don't let their domination fool you, because Montana State, Montana, and Eastern Washington are all realistic FCS title contenders and will make deep runs in the playoffs. Eastern Washington has the FCS Player of the Year in Eric Berry at quarterback, undefeated home record. and which Weber State and I believe Montana State both have to travel to the red turf up there in Eastern Washington. So look out for Eastern Washington. They're personally, I know some of y'all don't care, but they are my sleeper this year in the FCS for the FCS playoffs. I love what Eric Barrier brings. I think he's a stud. Look for him on draft night. Montana State, Matt McVeigh from North Carolina State comes in at quarterback. Should be an upgrade over Tucker Rovig at quarterback. So Montana State will be an interesting team. And then there's always these sleepers. UC Davis and Sacramento State cannot be overlooked in this division. I mean, in this conference. So this is a very tough conference. And so they're probably the closest thing to touching the MVFC in terms of depth and what they have at the top of that conference. And then the CAA had 3 top 25 teams, but 2 in the top 5. James Madison at 2 and Delaware at 5th. Both of them are real FCS title contenders. James Madison is the truth this year, guys. Let me just tell y'all. The CAA is a newer conference, guys, but they've made 8 national title appearances since 07 and have won 3 since 08. Delaware actually holds the record for the biggest win in the FCS championship game at 40-0 when they beat Colgate. James Madison, definitely the heavy favorite this year, but I really like what Delaware is returning on the defensive side of the ball. So both of these guys are going to make runs in the FCS playoffs, in my opinion. I think James Madison might have one of the most, I guess, the deepest team in the FCS. I mean, Mike Green on the defensive side of the ball is a monster. Listen, Mike Green was, I believe he was the CAA Defensive Player of the Year last year, unanimous All-American. And so Mike Green is a name you need to know if you're looking at FCS football. So, and then, with the SoCon, just some of the teams, so y'all know who we're comparing the SWAC to as we get to this next segment. Chattanooga, the Citadel, Furman, Mercer, Sanford, VMI, who is the favorite to win. WCU and Wofford are in the SoCon, and the OVC was they've taken a step back. They lost a lot of good teams, but it's still Austin P, Eastern Illinois, Murray State, SEMO, Tennessee State, Tennessee Tech, and Tennessee Martin. Murray State and Austin P are probably the odds-on favorite for that conference. So what I wanted to do is kind of, get a little bit of facts out there, educate everybody on what those other conferences are bringing to the table. And of course, the Big South, Monmouth, North Carolina A&T, those teams are going to dominate that one. So that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of, I guess, teams competing with the SWAC above them. And then, the reason I had SWAC at 9, I thought the Southland might have an argument just because of the head-to-head they've had over the SWAC. Nicholls State, McNeese State, Northwestern State, Southeast Louisiana, who had the Walter Payton Player of the Year award at quarterback. So Incarnate World is also a pretty good team. So that conference is loaded, in my opinion. So I had them slightly above the SWAC just because of their out-of-conference success. And so that's where we're at right now, guys. So in terms of what's going to come next, so this is going to be a lot of truthful stuff. It's going to be a lot of fact spew because I saw a lot of comments that just seem to be kind of out of pocket in terms of what we're talking about here. So this is where it's going to be. So it's going to be, what does the SWAC need to change to increase their rank against other FCS conferences? And so I did a lot of research today, man. I got off work a little bit early. I wanted to get y'all the facts, and I was looking at non-conference games against other top FCS teams. And I just want to highlight some games for you guys. And I want y'all to listen very closely on some of these scores. I have the years and everything like that. And I went all the way back to 2016. That's as far back as I wanted to go. And there's some good wins. Jackson State's win over Tennessee State in 2019. Arkansas Pine-Bluff over Tennessee State. Grambling beat Northwestern State in 2017 pretty significantly. Those are all great. But I would have started 2016. Mississippi Valley State versus Montana. Now, Montana is one of those, they're up there, man. That's going to be a team that's going to be in one of these. So what I look for is teams that are in these top 5 conferences. That's really what I wanted to get at. Mississippi Valley State got beat 67-7 by Montana in a football game. Just ridiculous. Mississippi Valley State versus Southern Illinois. 55-3 in 2017. Mississippi Valley State, North Dakota State, 72-7 in 2017. Arkansas Pine-Bluff versus South Dakota State. Guys, I couldn't even believe this one. 90-6. Listen, there were NBA teams that didn't have games where they scored 90 points. And Arkansas Pine-Bluff let South Dakota State score 90 points on them. Mississippi Valley State, Jacksonville State, 71-0 in 2018. Mississippi Valley State, North Dakota, 35-7. Alabama State, Kennesaw State, 2018, 62-13. Alabama State, Kennesaw State, 2019, 42-7. Alabama A&M Samford, 55-21. And then the reason that I'm having a tough time putting the Southland behind the SWAC is because McNeese State's been taking people out. McNeese State over Southern, 2019, 34-28. Let's see, Northwestern State in that division, 34-7 over Grambling. Let's see, I got another one. I'm pretty sure I got another one here. Alcorn versus McNeese, 2017. McNeese State wins that one as well. The problem with the SWAC, man, is one, you don't got to play non-conference games, man. Like we've been telling you, you have to win non-conference games and you just have to schedule them, man. Listen, the reason the SWAC's perception is so bad is because when I'm reading off these scores, y'all are sending Mississippi Valley State to play these out-of-conference teams. That's like the SEC sending Vanderbilt out to face the best team to face Ohio State every year. Why? There's no reason that Alabama A&M this year shouldn't be going to play Sam Houston, shouldn't be going to play in North Dakota, shouldn't be going to play a South Dakota State. There's no reason Jackson State shouldn't be going to play somebody big in the FCS. And I get it. Dion hasn't had time to schedule. I'll give him an excuse. I'm hoping he schedules them in the future. But how do we ever expect the SWAC to increase this rating where 8 and 9 is really good? But compared to some of the top teams, you're very, very far behind. And so what I want to do is just kind of highlight some of these games saying there's no reason you should be sending your worst teams to go play these teams, man. Sending Arkansas Pine-Bluff to go get beat by 90 points by a team that didn't win the national championship. I just want to let that sink in. South Dakota State did not win their conference that year and beat a team in your conference 90-6. That just it cannot happen, guys. And there's some good wins in here, like I highlighted before. But for me, the frustrating thing for me is one, everyone just devalues the playoffs like they mean nothing. And there's a reason why these schools are on like building dynasties at North Dakota State, at South Dakota State, at James Madison. And two, there's a reason that the SWAC doesn't get any respect. You're talking about, oh man, they're screwing us with seeding. They're screwing us with this. It's like you have to prove that you can go out there and bring in the money, bring in the success. Like, and I want to get to some myths that I've heard, on my channel, on Scotty's channel, on Coach Simmons' channel. Shout out to those guys and doing what they're doing. But I've heard this myth that nobody cares about the FCF, right? That the FCS, right? That playing in North Dakota State doesn't do anything for the SWAC. So I want to bring something to y'all. And I did the research. I will drop the links if you want me to. This is the research I've done on viewership for some of these regular season games. And so I picked from multiple years. So it's not just like one game like here, one game there. I just went through and picked like the multiple games in each year. And then I compared them to some of the SWAC regular season games. So 2014, Eastern Washington Sam Houston State drew over 676,000 viewers. North Dakota State Montana drew almost 1 million. Chattanooga Jacksonville State 725,000 viewers. In North Carolina A&T and Jacksonville State drew in over 564,000 viewers. Now, I picked those as good reference points because one, regular season, They weren't huge rivalries. They were just good non-conference games that were scheduled, which is what I have been screaming the SWAC needs to do more of, and stop sending your Mississippi Valley States to go get beat 90-6 by a top team in another division. Send your best to go face the best. Like, there's a reason Clemson and Georgia are playing this year, week 1. There's a reason Auburn went and played Washington and Oregon, who ended up winning the Pac-12. You have to send some of your best teams to go play other best teams. If you just keep sending your worst teams, they're going to keep getting smacked, and your conference is never going to advance on the football field. And I get it. Attendance is great. I get it. There's financial factors. But scheduling a home and home would do big things, man. You keep bringing up no one goes to ULM games. That's all fine. That's fine. No one has argued that ULM is selling out their stadium. But there are fans that go support Sam Houston States, North Dakota States, South Dakota States. Like, these top teams have real fan bases. Like, you're acting like nobody else in the FCS has a fan base. Let's just pump the brakes there. And, I've read off all those stats for those games. Let me get to some of the top SWAC regular season games. 2016 SWAC championship drew in 160,000 viewers. So the conference championship game is getting less viewership than just the non-conference regular season game. How? Then you look at the Bayou Classic 2016, 200,000 viewership. Then you look at, let's go to this year, because I know the Jackson State fans are going to come like, Deion's changing everything. Jackson State, Alabama A&M this spring. Now, let me just remember, the FCS games I picked were, 1, up against FBS college football. 2, had a lot more competition due to that. This one was in the spring where no competition. Jackson State, Alabama A&M, 377,000 viewers. Still lower than North Carolina A&T, Jacksonville State. Still lower than Chattanooga, Jacksonville State. Still lower than North Dakota State, Montana. Still lower than Eastern Washington, Sam Houston State. 2021, Southern Jackson State, 271,000 in terms of viewership. Still lower than all those other games. So the myth of nobody cares about FCS football is false. And so I want to say something here, and I want everyone to just kind of process it, and in terms of like trying to understand what I'm saying. Your lack of care about the FCS does not represent everybody. Your lack of knowledge about the FCS does not represent everybody. Going to play a North Dakota State would be significant. It would get viewership. It would be worth it in the long run. And some of these schools will pay you to come and play. It's a fact. Look it up. North Dakota State paid North Carolina A&T to come play. And I get the travel and everything. Home and home series are a real thing. Start getting some respect, and those home and home series will come. And Houston's not that far away from the SWAC blueprint. Jacksonville State isn't. Samford isn't. Y'all play Tennessee State a lot. I get it. But let's be honest, they're not winning the OVC. I want to see the SWAC continue to grow. And 8th place, 9th place is a great start. But for this conference to keep elevating and to keep progressing, non-conference games have to be those non-conference games have to be scheduled and played. 2, you have to win those games. If you are an FCS program in a real conference, which the SWAC is, you're in the 8th best conference in the FCS, let's just say, you cannot get beat 90-6, 71-0. That's just unacceptable. Like that just doesn't even make any sense how that even occurs. And so what needs to happen if, 1, the recruiting continues to uptick, 3, the recruiting to uptick, 2, the SWAC's perception continues to increase, and 3, if all this talk about the SWAC moving up, the SWAC expanding, the SWAC making more money, the SWAC doing this, You have to advance the SWAC. You have to keep evolving. And I get it. The SWAC hours are low for some of us, but the interesting thing that a lot of people are overlooking is we have a unique perspective. We have that outsider's perspective where we can look into this and be like, man, this is not exactly right. I get it. If you don't want to go to the playoffs, that's fine. A lot of people who have argued and made excuses were wrong because the travel is funded, the seating's geographical, all that type of stuff. Got you. Your conference gets a payout if you go. But hey, that's here and there, and I'm not going to sit here and argue that because we've had that conversation a million times. Go check out Allscript's channel. Go check out some of our live streams. We've had that conversation. I'm not here to debate it anymore. What I'm saying is you can keep the Celebration Bowl. You can keep the Bayou Classic when it is. You can keep all the like everything that all the people who have, all the people that are invested, like love and care about the traditions, everything. That's all fine. The only thing that like some of us are pushing is this: the scheduling needs to be a little bit harder. Like, yes, you're gonna have a money game, but instead of just playing some random team like what was it, Edwin Waters, Jackson State played, go play like a tough, go play a Sam Houston State. Try to get a home and home. And listen, if Dion has to pull to get in the Big 12, like some people think, then he's got to pull to schedule a Sam Houston State or a North Dakota State for a home and home. And listen, Jackson State Stadium and some of these in Alabama A&M, like these fan bases are going to show up. Alabama State's got a really nice stadium. I'm from Alabama. I've been to that stadium. It's great. There's some great environments and great traditions. And I hear all this stuff like, why should we care what the outsiders think? All this stuff. It's not that. It's how great would it be for some people who have never been to an HBCU game, experience that environment, experience the bands. How great would it be to get that on a bigger stage and in front of more eyes? More exposure is not a bad thing. More exposure leads to more money, leads to more opportunities. And so my last thought here before I head out, man, this is a special episode. Thank y'all for tuning in, man. I appreciate it. The last thing I want to leave y'all with is this. I've asked some players we've had on the show. I've talked to some other people in this in like this community that we have. They all like all the players have said a national championship means just a little bit more. And yes, going to the NFL matters. But at the same time, like if you want what's best for the players in terms of exposure, in terms of film, in terms of opportunities, in terms of career advancement, moving the SWAC along and playing some of these tougher teams out of conference and expanding the footprint of the SWAC outside of what it is now is not going to harm the SWAC. It's not going to hurt the SWAC. All it's going to do is make it a brighter future. And that's all it is, man. We like to be afraid of going to schedule tougher games and increasing that footprint and going to compete for a national championship and things like that are completely different. And once the scheduling goes different, I honestly would love to see this happen. Scotty's proposed a 4-team HBCU playoff. How that works, I'm not going to get into that. But let's say like the SWAC starts scheduling some of these out-of-conference teams and the perception starts to go up. You're going to have the leverage to say, hey, how about we do this? How about we take the Celebration Bowl champion and they play the national champion in another game in a neutral site or something like that? The opportunities are endless, and like we're just thinking in this like small box. We have to expand the thinking, and so that's what I know a lot of us on this bandwagon have been preaching. I just want to pull something up real quick. Do y'all see where the MEAC ranks? 14th, second to last after they lost North Carolina A&T. Second to last after they lost FAMU. Second to last after they lost Bethune-Cookman. Guys, the value of winning that game is going to decrease. The SWAC should dominate the Celebration Bowl. South Carolina State, great team. The SWAC should still dominate the Celebration Bowl for the next however many years the contract is till. But for me, guys, I was asked to bring this episode, man, because I have a little bit of FCS knowledge. So what I wanted to do was just kind of educate y'all on and just kind of talk to y'all, drop some facts on what those top conferences are bringing to the table, who's in them, why are they so highly ranked, everything like that. Because I know there's not a lot of channels out there that are just going to break it down at a basic level like that because, man, we're even new to FCS football. But I got y'all, man. let me know what y'all think about everything. I want to have a real passionate debate about this. Man, if you got any hate comments, leave them elsewhere, man. We don't need them here. But, man, leave your constructive comments below, man. What would y'all like to see the SWAC do? How can they increase their rankings compared to other FCS conferences? And how do we advance the SWAC into the future and make it grow, expand its footprint, things like that? How do we keep all this positive momentum rolling, man? That's the only thing I'm even caring about right now. So appreciate y'all tuning in, man. Listen, we'll have our Big 12 preview tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central Time, right here on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. We're back with fall camp updates next week, man. Shout out to y'all for supporting. If you're new here, subscribe, like the video, man. Leave all your comments. I'll be responding to some of them tonight. But I hope y'all have a great weekend if y'all don't tune in tomorrow. But we'll see you next week, man. But for right now, the Blue Bloods are out.